people look for something that's meaningful. Jurors look for something that isn't just this rote recitation. So for a long time, I've thought about words. Words aren't the most important thing we bring. Far from it. Our presence is more important, but the words are important. And so I've been talking about, let's not talk about loss. Let's not talk about someone lost their legs. Let's talk about someone took their legs, something that's more active. And as I've thought about that, it struck me that that's more than a word change, that this really can inform fully the way that we think about cases, think about trial, and what are cases after, how we think about what happened, right, when someone did something wrong.
I've not thought of this before, but when you first said, Jane lost her daughter, the first thing the little voice in the back of my mind said was, well, why wasn't she watching her more carefully?
Yeah, when you just said it, Jane lost her daughter, where my mind went, hearing you say it, was in the big mall.
Yeah.
There's a little girl in Lost and Found looking for her mother.
Right. And so we would rewards, give someone an award because they weren't paying attention. And you say that, and it sounds funny it's not funny that someone would have lost their child, but I mean, we're talking about it lightly, but when you have those subconscious thoughts, because you do have that defensive attribution with it. This wouldn't have happened to me. They lost their daughter because they didn't teach her to drive well enough, or because they didn't pay good enough attention, or because why was she even on the road at this time? I mean, there is all this thing that can come up. And I think when we use I don't want to say wrong words, because a lot of people are using them, but if we're not careful with our word choices, we can just kind of push people down a road that we did not, it does not benefit our clients for them to go down.
And there's also something that's important about being direct. So in this case, ABC's choices killed Jane's daughter. ABC Trucking's choices took from Jane. So then what are the different things? There's the activities, her ability to play softball with her, baseball with her. And then at the deepest level, there's the existential. There's the state of being. There's the love. ABC Trucking's bad choices took Jane's time, Jane's love, her daughter from her. And your job is to put a value on that, jury. So that language, again, if you're even in an admitted liability case, you don't have to get into what the bad choices were. You can talk about your sole job in this case is to put a value on what ABC Trucking took from Jane. What is the value of those harms and what was taken?
One thing I love, and I've learned some of this from you and from other people, is, the case is about what we think it's about, what we choose to make it about. And so let's just take, I've done, I don't know how many herniated disc cases, that's what you would call them, or spine injury cases. And there's always a fight. Did this particular trauma cause this disc to be herniated, or was it already an old disc? And you get into all this stuff. And I was talking to some lawyers at my firm the other day, and I said, look, there's not going to be a question on the jury charge that says, did the crash cause a herniated disc? The question would be, what sum of money paid now in cash would reasonably compensate somebody for their, I forget what the exact language is for but I think that we can go, instead of just asking the doctor. Now we'd have to prep the doctor first, saying, what injuries did so-and-so sustain? Is it, what did they take from her with respect to her neck? What did they take from her when they crashed into her vehicle? Well, she's been in pain, so you no longer have the ability to live pain-free. They've taken away some of her ability to move her neck. And what are the consequences of that? Well, when driving, it's going to be more dangerous because it's harder to see what's to the right. And just go from there. It's going to be harder to sleep at night. What are the consequences of that? And so what else have they taken from her? And I just think when we frame our questions differently, if we can get the witness to go with it, I think can really change the way. And then I don't care whether it's a herniation or an aggravation or a facet or a strain that never heals. All I care about is this was their life before, and they took these parts of that life away from that person.
These are things that we internalize, the active taking. The words matter, but you don't need to, in front of the jury, kind of correct yourself. So I think that as we build that habit, and as we are talking, I'll correct myself, you'll correct ourselves. It's more of just the attitude that you're taking into the jury, and to remind yourself, this wasn't lost. and to really be a mouthpiece for our clients to champion their cause, we need to feel some of that. This was taken from them. We're here to get it back. And I also think that you internalizing that or get the value of that back is helpful with the client, right? We never want to be there being defensive or feeling like we're apologizing. No, we're here. You took something. We're here to force the jury to hold them accountable, for the jury to tell them they have to return the value of what was taken.
Too often, we all learned we need to establish the defendant's wrongdoing before we talk about what was taken from the plaintiff, because if not, it sounds like we're asking for sympathy, or you get more likely to have defensive attribution. And so we would get, at least I would get, this habit of phase one of the trial. We're talking about what the defendant did wrong, what they did wrong, what they did wrong. Okay, the jury's got it. Now we're talking about, back then, harms and losses, and we don't mention what the defendant did again. We don't tie them together. And I think now, I try to, when I'm asking the question to the doctor, okay, now, when Acme Trucking's driver slammed into the rear of Paul's vehicle, I was saying, what did it do to his neck? Now I have to start thinking, what did it take from him? I got to work on my wording. And it's not always the most, you're not necessarily going to get an A+ from your English teacher by some of the sentences you come up with, but it communicates the message, and it ties the wrongdoing to what was taken. And I think that's really important. What someone had before, what was taken from them. So the first thing, I'm thinking, brainstorming session with my trial team. Okay, what did they take from Jane? And then talk to Jane about that. Does this ring true? Talk to her, the friends, family members, coworkers, whoever we can find, what was taken from her. And then we got to go back to, then what did she have before? Now, can we find any photos, any videos, any images showing what she had before, what was taken for her, so that the truth of it. I just think there's something when a jury sees a photo, or even better, a video of someone doing what was taken from them, whether it be gardening, playing with their kid, it just becomes so much more real and so much easier for lay witnesses to talk about when they have that backup. They get less nervous.
The idea of companioning is being present to another person's pain. It's not about taking away the pain, because we can't. When a client's kid's been killed, we can't take that pain away. For my mom, I was talking to her, Mom, I wish you weren't in pain. I wish there's something I could do. And then I realized I put myself in her position, because she could hear me. She can't really talk right now. And I just held her hand and she squeezed it. And I sat there a lot longer than I intended, just being there with her. And it meant a lot to me. And I think I know it meant a lot to her. So that's the same thing we can talk about at trial. Jurors understand that. There's nothing you can do to fix Jane's hole in her heart, but we can let her know we're here with her. What about this empathetic distress? What about the pain that comes because I want to fix everything and I can't? And what about the pain that comes when I so internalize? And how can I not take that on? Because what I want to do as a lawyer, and this is where the concept of a Zen lawyer comes in, what my goal is to reduce suffering in the world. And that includes reducing suffering in my own life, right? So it's not good for me just to try to help everyone else and then I suffer. I don't mind suffering a bit. I don't mind being in some pain a bit to help others, but not to the point that I can't function, or not to the point that it's overwhelming. I don't want that. So how do we do that? And I think that the first step is to realize I can't fix it. Because if your goal is to fix, you're going to continue to get crushed.
Yeah.
There's some things that can't be fixed. Because if you think that, giving your client a break, that's kind of mean to your client, what do you think, that they don't go home and cry every night or every week or all the time? They're crying whether you see it or not. So why not let everyone who's involved in the case, including the defense, just for a moment, feel what that feels like? So don't bring out the tissues right away to stop the emotion. Don't pause the deposition. So I practice being present with that. And it's tough because, like you said, we want to fix it. But okay, I can't fix it. Be present with it. just have a connection with my client, and here we are.
I don't know if you remember, there was an exercise that Josh did with me, and I promise you that Josh had known me and had worked with me for 20 years. He won't probably not do this to you if he doesn't think that you're ready for it. But he had me articulate all of the things that were in going through my head that I thought were holding me back from getting, the full justice I thought my clients. And so, one was, you're greedy, you're not good enough, you're too fat, no one's going to like you. You just want to buy, and so he had one person stand behind me for each of my self-criticisms and kind of shout them in my ear. And I had to give an opening statement and learn to tune it out. And it was emotional. I mean, it was a good exercise, but I know that night I was going to go with a group of people to go eat and have a drink. And I'm just like, you guys go, I'm going to process this. It wasn't that I was sad. I needed to just be in my room, have room service, and just kind of be with myself and process what I'd been through. But it was really a beginning of learning to let that stuff go so that I can be present for my client and present with the jury. Because now when I'm in there, I'm not worried about me, what's going to happen to me, and whether I'm good enough or not. I'm just worried about what happened and what the story is, and how can I help these jurors do the right thing.